Welcome to Switchboard. This is a space for the inner workings to become external. I am your host, a plural creator. I'm navigating life, art, existentialism, and the absolute nuances of dissociative identity disorder. This podcast blends poetry, internal monologues, and my life as a system of 65. This is a channel for deep listening and unfiltered rambling. Today's episode is titled The Rough Shape. This is the second stage of carving the Russian doll. We recommend going back to listen to episode 1 first so that you can get familiar with the history and not lose track of the podcast. Last episode, we zoned in on my infancy, the soft pre-memory stage of life. We spoke about how my early abuse and experiences tainted that. But this episode is about structure. It's about what happens when you're old enough to remember and digest rather than simply digest. When a carpenter walks into a timber yard, they look at the raw material, they check the grain, they locate the weak spots, the previous stresses left imprinted in the wood. This is what abusers do. Eye up their prey, model their abuse based on previous wounds. In my childhood, I didn't hold the tools. My self wasn't created through interests or hobbies or friendships. It was crafted in the eye of an abuser. Take a deep breath and step inside the first line with me. Carving craters in your chest with a blunt knife. A loss of control carved into my heart. A deep, sore, infected hole. Fuck knows how to start. I'll start healing a wound so large and raw, but here I go, more words to pour into my whole consumed heart and for others to read. I'll begin this piece without hope and end with a tutorial on how to tie the perfect rope. Control throughout my childhood was stolen. It dug deeper into that swollen wound. That's when I started to elope. My control slipped through the cracks with every action, every turn, every noise, and every word. Everything was taken from me. Control, a voice, freedom of choice. When will I get it back? Will I ever fix a sore, sorry crack in my tiny, twisted heart? When will I start to feel a part, not the parts that take over, but a part of life, of hope, dreams, future, family, etc., etc. I want to control things, to stop the screaming when I please, to stop the pain and the suffering, to stop the raping they would bring, to stop the drugs from entering their system, to stop the pregnancy my mum was forced into, to stop the crying, to start the laughing, to stop the rain on a happy day and start it in a lonesome way, with taps dancing and singing, not with jaws swinging. When will I feel big, not small? When will I find the emotional tool to stop this pain, this suffering, to stop the rape from occurring, to stop it circling through my head, to put child me to bed, tucked up tight, nightlight shining bright? My fear of the dark has never left. Will it stay with me when I breathe my last breath? Will he stick with me to the grave? Will he haunt me? Will I ever be brave? Will I ever learn love and stop hurting? Will I ever learn touch, the kind that's real, the kind that can heal? No matter how much good I feel, the bad just seems more real. Love is my relief, but I'm haunted by grief of what happened to as a child. It may leave my head for a while, but it's always there, so far, yet so close. I want eggs and soldiers made of toast, but Mum was fighting her own man-made war, sore black eyes and crack hidden deep in the kitchen drawer. He often told me, she's just a whore. You'll be like your mum when you're older, he said to me. Little me, grinning big, not sure what I'd be. I wanted to be just like Mum. 10 or so years later, I didn't realise what I'd done. The craving to be her. Yet like the crack, wilting inside her, powerful, and again so out of control. I don't want to be a whore. Haunted by the times I wanted more sex, power, control, and drugs. I found my control, but it was truly a bug, delving deep into my delicate skin, ripping apart what was sweet and subtle within, destroying that childish grin and replacing it with a lovely big bottle of gin. That childish humor turned to jokes about drugs, groups of thugs, and many more consuming bugs. Those groups killed hope. And now, here I am, wondering how to tie the rope. Even with that, there is no hope. No hope in death, like there's no hope in life. No hope left in cozy nights, no hopes in parties or games for kids. No hopes in smiles or forehead kisses. My lover gives me hope, so that's why, no matter what, I can't tie that rope. If only there were a way I could just click restart. That stems from my escape video games on a deck chair as a child, not overwhelmed by the rain in the game. It was in my control, the perfect escape. A world I could build while I laid and got raped. So if you're unwell and in pain, you're probably waiting for that tutorial. Start with pain and suffering, twist it with lies, sprinkle with loving, kind, twisted words. An ability to speak but to never be heard. You're halfway there, but let's stop while everyone stares and laughs at the ridiculous rope you're trying to tie, despite the fact that was your best try. But rest and play a little game. Imagine your happy place. Relax, be free. You'll notice, though, it's plagued by what used to be. So let's escape even further into this world. Think back to being that little girl. Let's restart her life, repaint the walls. Let's dance in halls, go to market stalls, with your rich, privileged family. Skip along. Doesn't this feel all wrong? Singing a tuneful song, but deep down it's fake and funny as we fall back into real life. Dad's beating his wife, mum's grabbed a knife, it's all moving fast. How long will this last? Someone take over quickly. The show is taking over. Wow. What beauty I've found. A four-leaf clover. Skipping through a field as I wield my charm of luck. Oh fuck. What's that over there? It's a hungry hare. Suddenly running towards me, hungry and angry like men when they're horny. Little me runs faster and faster, but gets distracted by a bumblebee. Imagine if that were me. I laugh happily, giggling as the hare straddles me. It always catches up in the end, no wonder it drove my mum around the bend. I hope not to develop my mum's schizophrenia, but maybe I'll escape for longer if I do. Who knows, do you? A paper cut hurts like a bitch because it's the equivalent of being cut with a tiny blunt knife. The danger of being carved with a blunt knife is that you spend years looking into the wound. You stare at the wood, wondering how to repair a crack that runs so deep. How this will ever be crafted into something beautiful. Any wood filler will not reflect the beauty of the wood at the start. But unlike wood, your brain is living, ever adapting, and at a young age still growing. It, like wood, can split, it can fragment, it compartmentalizes internally so that the vessel can keep moving with life. As they hacked away at my body like hungry lions, leaving behind nothing but bare bones, my mind learned to create from the scraps. Now we move into poem 2, Perpetual Adaptation. There's a chronic sense of urgency to my ever-adapting selves. Pleas for validation, recognition, congratulations, turn into self-deprecative, dissociated identities. My mind manipulates a being, creates them from my ribs, god of my world, building precariously. To fit what the world demands we be, she, as my god, could never be he. Built a kingdom, lays floors of stability, grassy safety, tree trunk cots to cradle me gracefully. She provides for the ever-changing external. Dressing rooms provided, we've got it all internal. Programming systems to handle complexity, ever adaptive to trauma intensity, eternal mending. That is the nature of the dissociative identity. So let's talk about those two poems. We'll start with carving craters in your chest with a blunt knife. This poem is control. This poem is about my perception on control. This poem originally, I started it with OCD in mind. I started it wanting to write poetry about how my OCD affects me, but it ended up being a piece about trauma, like everything in my life. And that imagery, carving craters in your chest with a blunt knife, that is how trauma feels for me. In your chest, a very vulnerable part, the place in your body that hosts vital organs like your heart and your lungs. And the blunt knife cutting through layers, cutting through ribs and tissue, producing less blood than a sharp knife would, because that's how this felt. It felt deeply painful, but it felt as though it could be hidden. I didn't have blood to clean up, so to speak. And this hole in my mind felt infected. There was an original set of traumas for me in my infancy. Abusers would locate this weakness in me, locate this pre-abuse that I'd experienced before meeting them, and they would use that, and that was the imagery for the infected hole. Reaction, every turn, every noise, every word, everything was taken from me. Everything was, even in a non-literal sense, when we're not thinking about actions that abusers may take to control their victims, but when we're thinking about dissociative identities, when we're thinking about the nature of a traumatized individual, when we're thinking about dissociation, you are in a chronic state of autopilot. For the average person, we have various autopilot reactions. The nod of the head to signal that you're still listening to someone in a conversation or you agree. The shrug of the shoulders for I don't know. The casual smile for I see you, I'm here, I'm listening. The hug. All these things are kind of autopilot reactions for the typical human being. But for the dissociated individual, that set list of automated interactions grows. Every action becomes automated. You have no control. You're a passenger in your own life, watching through the back seat of a car, watching through behind your eyes rather than in your body. Every day is a existential out of body experience. Every day is in a way what some people describe an acid trip to be like. Just that disconnection. And that adds to that sense of control that I lost through my childhood abuse. I then lost it through my childhood abuse survival mechanisms. And there's a theme of lack of hope in this poem. When will I find hope? When will I find future? When will I feel my dreams? When will I control things? When will I stop screaming? Just these endless rhetorical questions. When? When will there be a baseline? When will there be safety for me? When will I experience what everyone else around me described? And for a long time I asked these questions. I waited for a breakthrough moment where someone would come out from a door and be like, oh, this was all a prank. You passed. Congratulations, here's 10 million. And to stop the rain on a happy day, to start in a lonesome way. I've always had this sense of panic over climate change and all these things. I mean, who wouldn't panic about those things? We should all be panicking. But, it formed this existential dread. Things like as simple as rain being unexpected would throw my entire day off, lead me into a panicking spiral about how the world was going to end. And so, you know, that image of dancing in the rain with your friends and your teens, I wanted that. I wanted that predictability. That loss of control led to a desire to control every aspect of human life, every aspect of my life, every interaction, every reaction. And then we move into touching on my substance misuse in my later teen years. So, to stop the rain on a happy day, to start it in a lonesome way with tap dancing and singing, not with jaws swinging. I always had this idealized grass is greener on the other side idea of life. I thought that once I escaped all these abusive places, that I would have my own life and I would start a family, I'd have a job, and I wouldn't live in poverty, I'd be happy. But that just wasn't true. So there was always this sense of, oh, it's going to be better when I'm older. And I think there was still a sense of this when I wrote this poem. There was still a sense of it will come rather than it won't come unless I make it come. And then we get on to the next round of rhetorical questions. My fear of the dark has never left me. That's very true. I'm still scared of the dark. There isn't a night that I sleep without lights on. Will, will he stick with me to the grave? Will he haunt me? Will I ever be brave? All these things. Will I always experience this? There's no acceptance of it here. I mean, how can you really accept these things? It's practically impossible to give in and say, okay, this happened. I'm never going to be someone without trauma. Trauma is a part of me. Trauma is my identities. I want eggs and soldiers made of toast. There was always this childlike hope that I would be swooped back up. It would all be wrong and it was all just a test and I would be back as a little kid, just having my eggs and soldiers, watching cartoons and cuddling up next to my mom. There was still that childlike hope that would return one day, or I could just restart one day, as if none of this had ever happened. That hope, as I say, that hope, all of this would be different one day. That I would be a person without trauma. That I would be a singular person. All of that still exists in this era. I had completely no hope of my day-to-day life. I was very disconnected. I was stuck in the past and the future, both at the same time. And I just thought the past was changeable and the future was better. And we get into that lack of hope with my current life in this era of when I wrote this poem. No hope left in cozy nights, no hope in life, no hope in parties, no hope in smiles, all these things. I was so disconnected. Then we get on to the kind of maladaptive escaping side of trauma. Now, this is the very real part of trauma. If you're prone to dissociation, you've most likely experienced maladaptive daydreaming in your life. Maladaptive kind of coping mechanisms can look very different. For me, it was my video games. I had an entire life inside of Minecraft. Minecraft will always have a special place in my heart. It was the video game that kept me safe from the rape. There was the part of me that would still be playing Minecraft, whilst another part was being brutally and violently assaulted. On a deck chair as a child, not overwhelmed by the rain in the game. The rain in the game was somewhat predictable and the weather cycles were predictable. I knew what was going to happen in the game, even if a creeper would occasionally come up and destroy my build. I knew that I could just rebuild it because there was endless sources of wood and tools and stone and iron. It was in my control, the perfect escape. And let me transition into a more maladaptive daydreaming form of maladaptive coping, where I was quite literally going into a world in my mind where I was happy, I was in nature, everything was good, I was with a happy family, and it would always corrupt with my past, and that's where I introduced the hare, the hungry hare. And that entire metaphor is meant to be a kind of twisted nod towards the childlike interpretation of abuse. When you're being abused as a child, it can be very scary and you can process it like fear. But your mind can also process it like a game. Your mind can process it like it's funny. I mean, one of my most natural responses to fear is to laugh, and I've never understood why, but it's that disconnect, it's that dissociation, and it's that childlike ability to believe that it's not as bad as you think it is. And we end the poem with a rhetorical question. I hope not to develop my mum's schizophrenia, but maybe I'll escape for longer if I do, who knows to you. There's just this desperate need to escape, and there's this desperate need to get away and create distance between myself and the memories that my body contains. And when you feel so trapped in this vessel with all this pain and all these different personalities, you can't escape, you can't run away from your own skin, you can't run away from your own mind. And so you run to things like drugs, you run to things like maladaptive daydreaming, you run to media, you run to books. Perpetual adaptation is about the formation of my dissociated identities. She as my god could never be he, I could never have a male god. Never. My entire utopia in my mind is crafted without men. And, that was just the nod towards that, that lack of safety, that pain I felt at the hands of men. When you have DID, every alter, every aspect of you is based upon the trauma you have suffered in some way. I think this is especially common in people who have experienced trauma from a very young age, because the mind has never had a chance to develop in any way normally. Now this is my experience, please do bear that in mind. Every person you meet with DID or a variation of a dissociative disorder that involves alters will experience a different thing. There was no before for me. The trauma started with my heritage, even with my Romani heritage, and the discrimination faced by my ancestors, and then the pain of my mum's pregnancy and how that pregnancy came to be, the prenatal drug exposure. My point being that I was crafted with pain, and that that definitely is one of the most haunting pieces for me of this puzzle that we're unfolding in this podcast. It's the realization that there really is no state to return to. There isn't a before, there's only a during and an after. And so part of healing is learning to accept that you will never get a before. You will get an after, but you can come out as a beautiful person after. And that's something I've had to begrudgingly learn to accept in order to feel some kind of hope and in order to continue trying and never give up. Thank you for walking through the rough shape with me. It's time to wrap it up and come back to the present moment. If this space resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe or leave a quick review on my page. Thank you for tuning into this line. Thank you for deep thinking with me. This has been Switchboard. Until next time, we are signing off.